All right, so want to get right into it. We've been in a series the last few weeks. So if you're new here and you're kind of wondering what we're doing, how we do this, I'm John. Hi, how's it going? If you don't know who I am, nice to meet you. Love to talk to you after. Love to maybe not shake your hand necessarily or give you a hug or anything like that, but maybe fist bump or something like that. But nice to meet you. What we like to do here is we like to do a couple of things. As you saw, we like to do some singing. We like to do some games. What we also like to do is hear from God's word about who He is, what He's about, how He can work in our lives, and how we can kind of take some steps in our journey with our faith, or if you don't know about Jesus, how you can find your way into a place where you can take some steps in your faith. And so what we've spent the last few weeks doing is learning about what wisdom means and how wisdom actually works. And how does one get wise? I'm sure you've heard that before. I'm sure you've met some people. You think about all these people about, oh yeah, they're really wise and, they have really great wisdom and they have really wise things that they say. Everyone says Star Wars, Yoda, he's super wise. Everyone says those things. But what does wisdom actually look like? How do you get it? How do you apply it? And that's what we've been spending the last few weeks doing and learning. And so I want to kind of keep going and talk about the next layer of what that wisdom kind of life looks like. But before I do that, I want to kind of track back the last few weeks, kind of remind you what we've talked about so that you kind of remember for those of you who are here. And if you're new, then that way you can kind of follow along. So the very first week, it's the very first week of July, we talked about what wisdom actually is. And wisdom really is just knowledge rightly applied. Or it's just taking that knowledge and you apply it to God with God's help. And wisdom really comes from God. That's where it comes from. And we kind of looked at a few different types of lives and different types of walks that we can have in life. And so one of the lives that we can live is the simple life. And so the simple life really is just the type of life that you can just say like, well, whatever works out, and it's all good. No, whatever happens, happens. And so usually when you live that simple life, it costs you something because naivety or being naive will always cost you something. And then the second kind of life that we looked at was the foolish life. Somebody who, knows better but chooses not to do it anyway. They choose to go about a different route. And then we looked at a third type of life, the bully life, somebody who knows how it is but they use it as a way to make other people feel bad or to make their opinions feel louder than other people, and they just don't care about other people. And the fourth type of person is the wise person. And we talked about, wise person really isn't about the most educated or the person who's the smartest or anything like that, but it's the person who's the most teachable. And that's kind of where we talked about, where we spent a lot of our time that very first week. And last week, we talked about what it means to be content. Hakuna Matata. No worries. How can you live a no-worry life? And we talked about being content really is understanding that we have to know what discontentment looks like. And the enemy of contentment is comparison. So we talked about what it means to know what comparison is. And comparison really gives us the wrong perspective on life, on people, the wrong presumptions. We assume what we know about, we see somebody on Instagram and they're looking good, fabulous, and we want that kind of life, and we chase after that kind of life, and we don't even know what it can cost us. Right? And ultimately brings us the wrong person or makes us the wrong type of person. That's what comparison does. And then really we looked at the secret of contentment is realizing what we have. So anything you have, where you are, who you are right now, what you have is what you got. What can you make with it? Being content with that. Making God your source, because there's a part of our lives that only God can fill. So when we try to kind of force other things into it, we're always going to find discontentment. We're always going to feel like that person's better than me. I want to try and be better than this person. So making God our source so we can be content. And then living life on mission. Because when we have purpose, when we have something that's bigger than just ourselves, we have no time to compare. We're too busy at that point. So when we're living life with mission, or we have a purpose, or we're going after something that matters, it's bigger than just us, or bigger than just video games and this and posting on social and curating your feed and deleting your posts and all that kind of stuff. When we're living bigger than that and doing something of value, then we have no time to compare. But this week, I want to talk what it means to be a learner, what it means to be teachable. And that's why today's kind of talk was I'm a Padawan, and that's because I'm a huge Star Wars fan. Yeah, I'm a Star Wars nerd. I've got Darth Vader on my arm. I got the Mandalorian on my arm tattooed. I'm a nerd. Live with it. I'm cool with it. All right? So that's why the title of my talk is I'm a Padawan. And if you don't know what a Padawan is, that is basically an apprentice to a Jedi. So where's Caleb? Caleb, you know all about this. Tell me, what is a Padawan? If you had to define how you define a Padawan learner. You got to speak up because I don't think we can hear you. Somebody who just listens to their master. Okay, does everything that the master does. What? Learns their technique. So learns everything that the master does and embraces it for themselves. Okay. I want to challenge you to say, how can I be a Padawan? As we leave this talk tonight, as we kind of learn this and understand, I want you to leave saying, man, I want to be a Padawan. I want to be that type of person. See, most people, Christians, non-Christians, whatever, they all desire to be generous and actually have wisdom-filled lives. I don't know one person that really doesn't want to be generous or live a life that has wisdom and that kind of knowledge. No one wants to feel stupid, be stupid, live a life that is that. Everyone wants to, on some level, live a life that has wisdom in it and live generously. I mean, who wants to be around a person that isn't generous with anything, whether it's your time, your money, your attitude, your attention, whatever that is? No one really wants to be around people that aren't generous. I'll give you the example. For me today, I had the worst morning ever. From 8 o'clock, and everyone who's been here all day knows this because I've been complaining about it all day. But from 8 o'clock till about noon, I was trying to get plates for my new car that's out there, the red car that's sitting out front. I was trying to get plates for it, like license plates for it. So you got to go to Service Ontario, you got to bring your paperwork, transfer the ownership from the other person to you, buy your plates, blah, blah, blah. There's the whole process to this. But because of COVID, you got to go stand in line, make an appointment, all this kind of stuff. It takes forever, okay? So I make my appointment, go in, blah, 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 all this kind of stuff like that. And the lady at the counter was just incredibly rude to me. And she's just like, you don't have everything. And I'm like, what do you mean? I have everything. I've done this so many times with so many vehicles. I got everything. She's like, no, you need this paperwork. And I'm like, that's the first I've ever heard. I've never heard I would ever need this kind of paperwork to transfer a car into my name. And she's like, yeah, you need it. And she's like, you got to go fill it out, come back. I'm like, so I got to make another appointment. And she's like, yeah. I was annoyed. I left frustrated because I had to leave, come back, wait another hour, get all this paperwork, go back again. Go back, same lady. And I'm thinking, all right, well, I'll just put up with her, get my stuff, and I'll be out. And she's like, it's not enough. You need something else. And I'm like, what do you mean I need something else? She's like, you need an appraisal on your car. We need to know the value of your car in order to determine what you need to pay on it for taxes. And I'm like, I can tell you the value. This is what I paid. I paid this much money. I want to pay the taxes on it. And she's like, no, that's not enough. We need somebody to appraise it to tell us what it's actually worth. And I'm like, why didn't you just tell me this in the beginning? Why couldn't you just tell me all the information, help me out, then I don't have to worry, waste your time or mine. And she's just like, go away, get it done, and come back again. So I had to come back a third time. And I think you already know at this point I'm pretty frustrated. I mean, if you really know me, you know that I was definitely not happy. I was pretty frustrated going back. In fact, the security guard felt really bad for me because he came back, he's already seen me. He's like, John, come, go, just go. Because he's like my uncle at that point. He's a brown guy, so he just treated me like a son. Right? He just let me go through the line. So I felt nice, right? And I get up to the counter, I go up to the lady again. She's like, go get a number. And I'm like, okay. So I go get a number, come back. She's like, no, go back in line. She's like, you have to wait in line. I'm like, you didn't ask me to do that before. Before I just came to the counter the second time. Now you're making me wait behind everybody else. And there's like 20 people. She's like, yeah, you got to wait with everybody else. And I was just frustrated. Until I got to the counter to another lady. This sweet, nice Asian lady. I couldn't understand a word she was saying because the glass was thick and she had her mask on. I just couldn't hear anything. But she was so nice to me. She took all my paperwork. She said, like, how's your day going? I'm like, it's not going good. I just said, it's not going good. I would like to just get my plates and I just can't seem to do it. And she's like, okay, let me see all your paperwork. And she took all my paperwork. She's helping me out. And then not only that, another lady who I guess must have helped before was there. And she's like, hold on, just let me help this woman out real quick. She said, okay, hold on, let me get somebody else. I'll get somebody else to come help you. And then she came back, helped me, did all my stuff. Just really nice, took her time, and I was in and out real quick. And to me, I saw that because I was attracted. It changed my attitude completely, leaving that place. Because I was so frustrated. And I was so disappointed. And just in that 10 minutes window, that lady was so nice to me. And watching her take time for another person and to bring somebody else. Because she could have been just as rude as the other person. But she chose to be generous with her time. And I think we all want to be those type of people because we're attracted to those type of people. We like being around those type of people. But how do we continue to live that kind of life? How do we continue to be generous with our time, our energy, our attention? How do we live that kind of life? How do we become loving? How do we be the kind of people that other people are attracted to? And that's the thing, we ought to be passionate about this. We ought to decide that we want to know how we can be those type of people because we want to be better children. I mean, every one of you is a child to somebody, right? I would imagine you want to be a better child because I think if you are a better child, then your parents like you, then you get along better, then you get the things that you want. It just works out. I say that like I did it right. I totally did not do it right with my parents at all. And I still don't. I still don't do it right with my parents. But I would want to be a better child because then I know there's a good give and take. But I also want to be a better friend. I want to be a better sibling. I want to be a better coworker. I want to be a better employee to whoever I'm working for. And I would hope those are things that you would want to be. But in order to improve, in order to get better, we have to be intentional about our growth. You have to decide that that is a priority for you. You can't just say, like, if it happens, because that's the simple life. If you want to be wise, you have to decide that it's intentional. It's something that matters to you. It's something that you're going to give time and attention to your growth. And we must remain teachable in order to be taught. You good, Tanya? Okay. Just want to make sure you hit your legs. I was just making sure you're good. Okay? We must remain teachable in order to be taught. And the Bible is full of these lessons, specifically the book of Proverbs. It's full of the lessons in the theme of learning and being taught. And in order to know what it means to be a learner, in order to know what it means to be a Padawan, we actually have to know the signs of what it means to be an unwise person. And quite honestly, the way the Bible put it, it's just fools. We have to know what a fool looks like. A fool acts, and a fool thinks, and a fool talks. So that's where I kind of want to start. I want to talk about the first bit of what foolish people look like, or foolish talk looks like. And again, you might need to strap in a little bit because you might see yourself in this. I know I did. There's moments where I caught myself in this. So we got to know what it means to be foolish or have foolish talk. And in Proverbs chapter 10, verse 8, it says, the wise are glad to be instructed. Let me say that. The wise people are glad. They're happy to be instructed, to be taught. But babbling fools, people who run their mouth, fall flat on their faces. Okay, so here's some types of people who speak foolishly. Everyone knows this person, the know-it-all. Anyone know a know-it-all? Do you know one? Put your hand up if you know a know-it-all. I know a couple of them. See, this person who is exclusively trusting their own knowledge, their own, whatever they think is theirs. They're like, I'll trust only my knowledge. I don't listen to nobody else, nobody. No politician, no health expert, no parent, no nothing. I will listen to my own knowledge. So what does the Bible really say about this type of person? In Proverbs chapter 28, 26 says, those who trust their own insight are foolish, but anyone who walks in wisdom is safe. See, I think that's important. Anyone who walks in wisdom is safe. The reason why I say that it's important is because I literally was this know-it-all, and it costed me my safety at a time in my life. So when I was about 18, I used to race for, not a living, but pretty close. I paid for a good chunk of my university street racing, illegally, making, money from those things. And I was getting pretty good at it. I was winning a lot of races. I figured out how my car worked, and I knew the right way to make my car do the things I wanted it to do, and I was confident in my abilities, and I was confident in the inability of a cop to ever catch me. So I grew in my knowledge through doing a bunch of races. I got to about 21 races, making pretty good money, thousands of dollars doing this. So I felt pretty confident in saying that I think I trust my own knowledge of how my car works, my ability as a driver, and I could win. So when somebody suggested a race in late November that had a pretty big pot, it was about 10 grand, first place, I was pretty confident I could win that pretty easily. So confident in my ability that I decided to keep my summer tires on my car because I needed the extra little bit of traction that I could squeeze out of my car because I was going up against some cars that had more power. So I needed a little bit of extra to be able to kind of take the corners and bank the corners tighter and be able to win. So I trusted my ability. I trusted my knowledge. Instead, of doing what was wise and understanding that it was late November, it had snowed, there was ice on the road, there were things happening. It was not the greatest weather around. It had actually snowed kind of like 2 days prior to that. So there was ice on the road, and it was like minus 15, 16. But yet I trusted my ability. I didn't want to put my winter tires on. Winter tires were going to slow me down. The tires are big, they stick to the road, and I'm not going to get the kind of power I needed. I needed my tires to be slick and just go. So I trusted my own ability. And instead of winning a race, I drifted right, going about 90 kilometers an hour right into a metal light pole and wrapped the whole front of my car around it. Also, because I'm so wise, I decided not to wear a seatbelt, right? And because I'm even wiser, I didn't have a steering wheel that had a airbag in it because it was a modified steering wheel that was a lot looser, so I could make the turns and the drifts much tighter, right? So all this put in there costed me my car, costed me not my license, but it did cost me my insurance on my vehicle, because now I can't drive a car. I don't have a car to report it to my insurance company. My insurance company ain't going to give me insurance. I have a at-fault accident on my hands. And that was the end of my racing career at that point. See, the know-it-all thinks they know it all until it costs them something at the end of the day. Because all the money that I had was gone just like that. Because now my parents found out. They found out that I was racing. All the now the truths are coming out. Now they're taking away privileges because I was living at home at the time. So now all the money I made has to go into moving out and paying bills and paying things. And so all the money I made is gone, just like that. Cost you something. The know-it-all. It's like the Bible kind of knows what it's talking about 2,000 years before we've ever existed, huh? And we want to believe that we're better or we know more than God. That's why it's called wisdom. Trying to find where do we fit in the middle of this. Second type of person, the been there, done that. Ever been that person? Oh, I've been there, I've done that. See, this is the type of person who considers themselves wise, so they never listen. And Proverbs chapter 12, verses 15 says, fools think their own way is right, but the wise listen to others. So just because you've been there doesn't mean you know how to do it or you know what it takes to do it. And the wisest people I know are the people who surround themselves with people that know more than them. So, to me, one of the most successful ways a coach can coach an NBA team, because it's the highest turnover job in the game. That's the job that just turns over really quickly. People just, as soon as you're losing, you're like, you're out. But the most successful coaches are coaches that put themselves around assistant coaches that have far more experience than them. Because they can share their insight, they can share their knowledge, they can bring it together, and they can bring the plan together. So the Toronto Raptors, Nick Nurse, who has only been a head coach for 2 years, he had 2 head coaches with him who were assistants that have coached in major games and all over the world. They have decades of experience as a head coach, running teams around him. Why would you bring somebody else that has more experience than you on your team? Because that's what it takes. Wisdom says, I'm going to listen to somebody else who knows more, who maybe has done it better, who has done it a different way than I would. So I want to learn from them so I can craft my own way. But the been there, done that says, like, no, it's my way. Which very much ended up being the Indiana Pacers head coach last year that only lasted 1 season. And he was out. Because he chose to do it his way. He said, I have the experience, I'm the head coach now. So I'm going to do it my way. Everyone listens to me and we'll do it my way. And he's out. That's the second type of fool. The third one, again, we all know this type of person, the one-upper. Anyone know a one-upper? The type of person you share something with, and then they're like, no, they got to take it another level. Man, I got an 80 on my test. Say, yeah, I got a 90. They can't even say that. They can't even say, man, good job. They're already ready to tell you what they did. Anyone know a one-upper? See, that's the person who believes that no one has done or achieved things like them and enjoys being better than others. But again, what does the Bible say about this? Proverbs 18:2 says, fools have no interest in understanding. They only want to air their own opinions, their own ways. See, if you don't want to speak foolishly, we need to be willing to listen and learn. We got to do both parts. We Got to be willing to listen and learn. So what does it take to truly listen and learn? Quite honestly, it starts with just having a listening heart. So Proverbs chapter 1, verse 5 says, "Let the wise listen to these proverbs, these lessons, or these teachings in the Bible, and become even wiser. Let those who understand receive guidance." But that's the thing. It doesn't always feel good to be given advice. It can be easy to ignore. But a teachable person is somebody who's being willing to be humble, has a desire to grow, and is willing, here's the last part, strap in on this one, is willing to embrace correction. That's a tough one for some of y'all. Especially the stubborn personalities like mine. That's a tough one, right? Because y'all think y'all know better, right? Oh, I got my phone. I know better. I can Google it. My parents are out of touch. They don't know. They don't know enough. I know what's happening in life. I could just Google it. I know what's happening out there. But see, wise people embrace correction. If you're not going to write anything down, write this down for me, for yourself, okay? Correction is not rejection. Okay? See, that's the thing. The enemy wants to manipulate your thought process. He actually wants to let your emotions even get in the way of this. And he wants you to interpret correction as condemnation, to make you feel shameful or guilty. But if you do that, you become bitter and you're stunted in your growth. You will remain 4'10" in your spiritual walks for the rest of your life. You'll stay there. You'll never grow. And that's what the enemy did from the very start of time. He did that with Eve. Adam and Eve, the story of Adam and Eve. When God said, don't touch, you got everything else out there, just don't touch that one tree. Don't touch that fruit. That tree, just leave it alone. Just don't touch it. I'm your dad. I've created you. I know more than you. Don't touch that tree. And that's the one tree Eve just happened to look at. And the devil came in and said, like, did he really say that though? Like, if we're really thinking about it, like, did he really say that? Like, doesn't he want you to have everything? Doesn't he want you to have it all? And Eve, in her foolishness, allowed that place to get there and allowed that to be fueled inside of her to the point where she says, oh, yeah, I need to have that. I need to take that. Because I don't want to listen to God. Like, God says, no, I want that. I won't be like God. Because we want to take correction. But that stunts our growth. See, the Bible says, Proverbs 12:1 says, to learn, you must love discipline. It's stupid to hate correction. That's straight from the Bible. To be wise, to learn, you must love discipline. You should be willing to tell yourself and others, I'm willing to embrace the pain of correction because it allows me to learn and grow. Because it will cause me success. I'll step up and I'll grow. Now, correction, there is pain in that, but you have to be willing to embrace that. You have to be willing to take that in. It's kind of like a giant piece of marble. Have you ever seen beautiful marble statues that are carved and it's just really intricate? Like if you go to Italy and stuff like that in the Vatican, like you see these beautiful sculptures. How do you think that exists? How do you think that happened 100 years ago? How do you think it happened? It took a guy coming in with a chisel and a hammer to start a giant block, and he had to start chopping away at the dead stuff because it was ugly as a block of marble, but he had to take out the ugly to allow the beauty to come out of it. He had to carve into it, but he had to chip away at all the dead stuff. And that's the thing inside of us. We have to be willing to let God come in and chip away at some of the dead stuff. And yeah, it might be painful. But if you're willing to let him come in and chip away and chip away and chip away, take correction, live wisely, then all of a sudden, the end of that journey, you're beautiful. Something beautiful comes out of all that mess. And that's the thing. We got to be willing to overcome the fear of rejection, the fear of being hurt, the fear of receiving advice that goes against what you want to hear. So what does it look like to be a learner? How can we be learners? Well, here's 4 things, and practical things. Learners initiate. They take action. They take the first step. And they're willing to improve their position by asking for advice. Say, how can I improve? What do you see in this? What's the way I can go about this? And James chapter 1, verse 5 says, if you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and he will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking. So take the first step. Be willing to ask. You see, last week, we did worship here, and Isaiah, I'm going to point you out real quick. Are you cool? Okay. Isaiah led worship for the first time last week. Yes? Is that my understanding? You led for the first time? Right? You've been playing, but you led for the first time, right? Okay. So you led for the first time. And here at RY, we give opportunities to everybody. You want to get involved, you want to plug in, there's opportunity here for you. You just got to be willing to step in. So Isaiah's got a talent for music. He likes to sing. He loves to sing. And so he's been growing that. And so he got an opportunity last week to do it. And one of the first things Isaiah said, I actually didn't say anything. I watched him walk by. I'm like, yo, man, you did a fantastic job. Right? And Isaiah just looked straight at me. He's like, yeah? What, you got any feedback? What's my feedback? What's the feedback? You got any? Like, what do I need to improve? Ready? I'm ready. I'm like, yo, man, like, we'll talk about that later. I'm like, I just want to tell you did a great job. Okay, but feedback? You have any? And that's the thing about it. I love that attitude because it wasn't just, he wasn't looking for the glory. He wasn't looking for the good old pat on the back. I did a great job. He recognized that he did a great job, but he wanted to know, is there any feedback you can give to me? Because I recognize that you're my leader. You're somebody who knows more than me. Is there any feedback you can give to me that helps me improve and gets better? Leaders I didn't offer the advice to him. I didn't say, man, you could do this. He initiated the conversation by asking me for feedback. Learners are willing to take the first step, initiate it. Second thing learners are willing to do is implement. So not only are they willing to take the first step by asking for the advice, they're willing to take action in that. We have to do what we have learned. So if I give Isaiah the feedback and he does nothing with it, not really a learner. But if he takes the feedback and he applies it, that's another step in being a learner. And that's what James chapter 1 verses 22 says. Don't just listen to God's word. You must do what it says. It doesn't say, let me just plainly say this. It didn't say you might want to do it. It didn't say like, if you think about it, it said you must do what it says. Otherwise, you are only fooling yourself. So don't just listen to God's word. Y'all been here, sitting here, listening to God's word. Don't just listen to God's word. You got to do what it says. Otherwise, you're fooling yourself. Being the life of a learner. And then finally, my third one, learners improve. So as you gain wisdom, you improve. You improve upon who you are. You take the steps to become better. And our lives become better. And as you grow, you start to see the success for yourself. Encouragement feels good, but correction promotes growth. So when you're willing to take correction and apply it as a learner, you will see improvement. You start to see yourself step up. That's the thing I love about Steph. Where's Steph? She's around here somewhere. Where's Steph? Meadows. There you are. Can I use you? I didn't ask you permission, so I'm asking now. Okay. She might be butthurt later. Let's see. That's the thing I love about Steph. Because Steph here came here to this church as a master's college intern. And then she became our summer camp coordinator. And the thing is, Steph actually probably has more, or at least equal to my experience of summer camp, maybe a little bit more, because she's run it for, years, right? So Steph has way more summer camp experience than me. But yet, inevitably, every single week for the last 3 weeks, at least a couple of times a day, maybe once a day for sure, I pull her into my office, and I'm like, hey, you could do this, you could do this. Here's 2 paths you could go. If you go down this path, here's what I'm seeing. If you go down this path, here's what I'm seeing. And if Steph wasn't willing to be a learner, and if she wasn't wise, she'd just say, well, John, listen to me, John. Like, you don't really have the summer camp experience. Like, I'm the know-it-all because I got the summer camp experience. So, like, you're telling me all these things, but you're kind of wasting my time by pulling me into your office. And I got it. Like, it's my job to do summer camp. I don't have to listen to you. You have nothing to do with camp. So why don't you just leave me alone and let me do camp? Now, she could say that. But Steph has never once said that to me. In fact, Steph takes everything I say and applies it. And I see the benefit every time she applies it. And I hope she sees the benefit when she applies it. Because I've walked that road. I've been there. I've watched her do it, and I've done those things. So I know what those roads look like. So when I offer it, it's not because I think I'm better. It's me just giving what I've learned from somebody else who's taught me. And I say, here's some options you can consider. I could care less what road you go, but here's the options. And every single time Steph has taken it and applied it for herself and for her team. Learners, that's what they do. They're not willing to just look at it and say, I got this, I'm this good. They're willing to say, like, how can I improve? Because I know I'm not the best. I know I can improve. And the last one, and I'll invite the team to come up here, is learners inspire. And that's where it shifts from just us into others. So as we show we're teachable and we're willing to learn, then we start to inspire others to be better. We start to allow others to follow us and start to come around us. And that's the thing I love about God, because it's all about others. It's never just about us. See, if you're willing to actually allow Jesus and trust Jesus, then I don't know I don't know how to say this other than because I experience it every day. There's something beautiful about not just doing things for yourself. And that's counterculture of what's happening out there. Everything you're told out there is do you, do yourself, get your grades in, right? Forget everybody else, get into the right college and university, get this, get that, get into the right job. But what they forget to tell you is that none of the jobs even look for any of that, actually. I know this because I'm an employer. And when I'm hiring, I don't even hire the smartest people out there. I hire the people who are most teachable. I hire the people who are most willing to learn. Yes, Hannah, I see you saying myself here, because Hannah is one of my employees. I hire the people who are willing to learn and willing to listen and willing to play well with others and willing to care more than just themselves and just their paycheck. And that is almost every single company out there is looking for. Most companies don't even look at education as the number one requirement. In fact, chances are it's like number 2 or number 3, maybe even less, depending on the career path you go. Because the truth is, you cannot teach someone to be teachable. You have to be willing to be teachable. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to have character. You have to be willing to play well with others and inspire others and be around others and work well in a team. So newsflash, I will give you this free piece of advice when you're sitting in job interviews. When they ask you that question about are you a person that likes to work by yourself or likes to work with a team? That's a trap question, just so you know. Okay? Because if you tell them that you only like to work by yourself, you will not get hired. You won't even make it past round 1. All right? Just so you know. Because every single job out there involves people. There's no job really that you're by yourself. And if you are, you still have an employer that you're working for, that you have to interact with, unless you work for yourself. But then when you work for yourself, you work for your clients. So really, there's no job out there that you work by yourself. You have to be willing to work with others. And that's the thing about God. When I serve Jesus, when I choose to serve Jesus, my life doesn't become about me anymore, not just me. It's actually more about others. That's why I do what I do this. That's why I do this. Because it's not even about me anymore. It's about how can I create an environment where I can call you guys up to the standard, to another standard, so you can experience what God has for you. By learning from Him, by learning by the way He wants you to do it, by allowing you to see how He sees you. And when you're willing to look at yourselves like that, when you're willing to step up into that layer, then God just unlocks and releases things to you. Blessing, favor. And yeah, it might be hard, it might be difficult, you might have to walk some roads, but if you're willing to be a learner, go through those experiences, then God's just taking you to another level. And He just releases things to you. He calls you up, He gives you confidence, He gives you ideas. And that's the beautiful thing about who God is. He loves you enough to always pour into you. And He's never just going to say, hey, okay, I'm just going to give you this much and I'm out. And some of us may have had good dads. I understand that. I'm empathetic to that. Some of us may not know what it is to have a good dad, and some of us do. But I'm telling you, the best dad out there is my Father in heaven. And that's no disrespect to my actual earthly father. I love my dad. I do, and I love my father-in-law as well. But my best dad, the one who has my back, who's always had my back through my weaknesses, through all my mistakes, through when I was at my lowest of lows, and when I've been at my highest of highs. My Father in heaven has always had my back. He's always called me up. He's always said, man, John, I love you. I'm proud of you. Even when you are at your lowest, I'm still proud of you. Because you're my son. You're my child. My love doesn't change for you just because you made some mistakes or you've lived below the bar. I'm calling you back to me. I want you to come back to me. I want you to be willing to come back to me. And that's the life of a learner. That's the life that says, hey, I'm willing to change. I may have done it this way, but I want to get back to a place where it makes sense to me, where I'm living wisely. I can live generously. I can live with hope. That's the thing. When you change your attitude, you go from being miserable, and let me add this part, living in fear, okay? Because our world right now loves to live in fear. It's like an addiction to live in fear. You move from that place into a place of hope, where God really is in control. And even though you may not understand or know what it's going to look like, God's in control of that. And he's going to navigate those paths. That's where, to me, I'm cool following every restriction that's out there. I'm cool knowing that full well that our country, in fact, our province is the most restricted in the entire continent of North America. I'm still okay with that because my God is in control. My Father in heaven's in control, and he's giving me hope, and he's calling me up. He's giving me opportunity. So why can't I trust him? Why can't I go his way? Why can't I be teachable and wise under him? And instead of looking and saying, why can't I have this and this and all these other people I have and all of that? Because that's comparison, and that steals things away from me. Instead, I choose to say, okay, God, let me spend my time with you. Let me love you. And as I do that, you'll call me up to the standard. And the things that I don't know and I understand, you're in control of, because you're dad. Just like I've always said this to you, most of you don't know or understand how the mortgage or rent gets paid at your house. You just wake up the next morning knowing that your home is there, right? None of you are really worried about that. Oh, is my house going to be here tomorrow? Are we going to get kicked out? Am I going to have enough food to eat? None of you are worried about that, right? Am I going to have clothes, shoes? None of you are worried about that because your parents take care of that. They cover it. That's what they do. That's their responsibility. They don't tell you that. They cover it. They look out for you. They make sure you don't have to worry about that. That's the beauty of it, because God's looking and saying, I got you. I'm covering things that you don't even know that I'm covering, so that you don't have to live that way. You don't have to live worried. You don't have to live fearful. You just have to know that I love you and I've got you covered. But that's your choice. It's always been your choice. That's the kind of God we serve. It's not a restrictive religion. It's a relationship with Jesus, and it's a choice that you got to make. You got to be willing to make. You got to be willing to say, hey, I'm going to invite you into this space. I'm going to invite you into my heart. I want to learn from you. I want to live this kind of life. I want to live wisely. That's what takes me from a person that did everything that I could in my own power to be successful to this place where I'm not in control anymore. I just allow God through wisdom to navigate my paths and allow him to take control of my life and allow him to have every opportunity that he presents in front of me, and I walk in it. And that's God. That's who God is. And if you're willing to do that, I honestly believe, and I'm promising you this, that God will take you places that you've never thought you could ever go. And the reason why I can promise you that is because I see it in his word every time. I see it in the Bible every time. All promises he's ever made to a person, to people in the word, they've capped it here because they think this is good enough. God's just like, if you let me, boom, it's all like this, actually. It's actually like almost impossible for you to imagine what I got for you. Because that's how a guy like Joseph, who had a dream from God, if you know the story, and I encourage you to read the story if you don't know the story, who had a dream from God that he would be in charge of his brothers. He would be the guy who's in charge of his brothers. He was the youngest of 12 brothers. And he had this dream that he said, oh man, I'm going to be the guy who's overseeing my brothers. And he was pumped. He loved that dream. He thought, oh man, I'm going to get this authority to be on top of my brothers. And he capped it there because that's all his understanding could take him to. Instead, God had this bigger dream that took an Israelite boy in one country to another. In fact, it took him from one country to another to a country that saw themselves as better than the Israelites, which were the Egyptians, who said they were better. They enslaved the Israelites. And he took a guy like Joseph, who was an Israelite boy, as the second in command to a nation that wasn't his own. Imagine. Because I don't think Joseph ever thought that's the kind of influence and that's the kind of dream that God actually had for Joseph. And Joseph, to get there, had to be willing to be teachable, had to be a learner through the process, had to go through the dungeon and use his gifts and talents and trust God in the lowest of places to take him to the highest of dreams. And you think that God is looking at you just saying, man, you're only good enough for 10,000 followers on Instagram? God's got bigger dreams for you if you're willing to let him work with you. I honestly believe that. I really do. But you're the only one who can cap yourself, not me. I uncapped myself. So I'm going to go for it all. And I got big dreams. In fact, my dreams are so big for myself, I know God's got bigger ones beyond that for me. So I uncap myself, which means I don't allow other people's insecurity to stop what God's doing for me. And that's my encouragement to every single one of you, is to be willing to uncap that for yourself. Don't let anybody else's insecurity of what God wants to do for you to stop you. Because God can do incredible things through every single one of you if you're willing to be a learner, if you're willing to come under that and be teachable. If you're willing to say, man, I just don't know it all, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to take it from other people. That's how the best musicians have been the best musicians. That's how the best athletes are the best athletes. They learn from others. So that's my encouragement to you today. Are you willing to be a learner? Are you willing to be teachable? Are you willing to take the humble approach? And humble doesn't mean you have to be like this quiet person. It just has to be, it just means you're willing to listen and you're willing to learn. You have an openness to you. So as these guys lead us in our final moments and we break off into our small groups, I just want to encourage you to be willing to say, hey, God. And there's a couple of places you could go. Maybe you've never given your life to Jesus. Maybe you've never been in a relationship with Jesus. And that's the starting point for you. You've never actually said, hey, God, I believe in you. I believe that your son Jesus died on the cross 2,000 years ago to pay for my sins, to pay for my mistakes. So I don't actually have to live in separation, in sin, in darkness. Because that's the promise. That's the only promise you have is death here. Guaranteed is death in this life. And what does that look like on the other side? And Jesus, because he was perfect, paid that price for you and me. Because we're not perfect. We cannot be perfect. We're born with sin. We make mistakes. But Jesus was perfect, so he came in and paid that price for you and me. So that when we accept Jesus, when we decide that, hey, I want to take that gift that Jesus did for me and live a life that he calls me to, at the end of my days, when he calls me up, I get to spend eternity with my Father and not away from him. Maybe that's your first step. But if you've already said, hey, Jesus, you're my dog, you're my guy, you're OG, that's who you are to me. But maybe you've kind of just not given that space to him. Maybe you're just like, hey, I'll see you on Sunday, Jesus, at church. I'll do my thing with you on Sundays. Or maybe I'll come on Fridays or Wednesdays or whatever day of the week you go to some other stuff. Like, I'll spend my time with you and a bunch of Christians, and I'll do my thing there. But every other day, every other time, like, God, just, you're on the side. Let me do my thing. And that's my encouragement to you, is to invite God into those places, into those spaces where you can say, okay, God, I want to do this. Here's where I'm at. I want to make this decision. I want to go here. I want to do this with my friends. This is how I spoke to my parents. Did I do the right thing? Was I honest with them? Did I talk the right way? Am I willing to listen to what they have to say? John was super harsh with me on Friday. In fact, he called me out last week. Right, Kyle? He's like, am I going to take that or am I going to be offended at it? Right? I'm sure you had to process that one. Those are spaces you could invite God into. And that's my challenge to you, because that allows you to be a learner. That allows you to be in a place where you're teachable and you continue to grow. And as you do that, you start to make changes. You start to do things that you could never possibly do. I touch things that I don't have any business touching in the sense of it's just not, I don't have the expertise, I don't have the calling, I don't have the insight to do those things. But yet God puts me in those spaces so that I can work in those environments. I don't have the expertise or the understanding, but yet God trusts me to do that. So my encouragement to you is, what kind of learner do you want to be? So as these guys lead us, I'm going to invite you guys to stand up. Just spend this few moments here reflecting on where you're at with God and what kind of steps you want to take in your life.